Morning. So what I've got here in front of me is everything that you'd need for a day hike. So I'm going to lay it out and show you what's inside. I'm going to cover what you would need for the 10 Scout Essentials for both Scouts and Cub Scouts. And then I'll also cover a couple other things that you might want to think about that some other people recommend, which would be really helpful. So I'm going to lay all this stuff out on my tarp here, and then we'll go through each item. Okay, so I've got everything all laid out, and we'll go through them. First, I'll just list all the items, and then we'll talk about them in a little bit of detail. So I've got pocket knife, first aid kit, some extra clothing, rain gear, flashlight, headlamp in this case, some trail food, canteen full of water, matches, and fire starter. We'll talk about those. Sun cream, map and compass, and that's it, the backpack. Okay, so the first thing, pocket knife. So what I use is a Leatherman, and a lot of people talk a lot about what's the best knife for camping and backpacking, and to be honest, as long as you've got yourself a good quality knife, exactly which one you have, it doesn't really matter that much. So Leatherman's great, Swiss Army knife is great. A fixed blade knife, generally that's not used so much in scouting, although fixed blade knives are fantastic. I use one all the time. But what's great about, say, a Leatherman is that you've got lots of other tools on here. So you've got the pliers, which are really handy, the saw, the file, the awl, lots of other things that can come in really handy. So pocket knife is really essential, and but before you use it, make sure you know how to use it safely. First aid kit, absolutely essential to have a first aid kit with you. And what you put in your first aid kit is it's a lot of personal choice. I've got a few things in here which are a little bit unusual. I won't go through all those right now, but a first aid kit is absolutely essential. Now, some extra clothing. Extra clothing is really important either if all of your clothing gets wet or if it gets colder, if you see some unexpected conditions while you're out hiking. So what's a really good idea to carry is an extra change of clothes, top and bottom. So in this case, what I've got is a pair of thick wool long underwear. So if everything got soaked, I could take my clothes off, put on that wool underwear, and I've got something dry next to my skin. And if I need to, I can put my wet clothes on over the top of that. At least I have something dry next to my skin. Another really good option is a pair of fleece bottoms, poloed fleece bottoms, and top. And then, what's always a good idea is just to take an extra sweater or a fleece top. This one I've got here as well. So, a few options if either all your clothes get wet or it just gets a little bit colder and you want something else to put over the top of you. Rain gear, my rain jacket. Probably also want to take a pair of rain trousers. Now, what I'm using here is it's actually a soft shell, not kind of a standard Gore-Tex jacket. I really like the soft shell because it's a little bit quieter, and also it's a little bit warmer. It's kind of fuzzy on the inside. It gives you that just a little extra insulative layer. One thing I have noticed about these soft shells, though, is that if it really pours, they're not 100% waterproof. Well, nothing's actually 100% waterproof, but they do tend to leak just a little bit. So that's one thing to bear in mind if you know it's going to be pouring all day. You also want to have some trousers, some rain trousers as well. What I'm trying out at the moment are some soft shell trousers. They're water repellent, so we'll see how those go. But you want some trousers as well. Headlamp, again. This is really just a relatively inexpensive one by Energizer. It doesn't have to be too fancy, but don't forget some extra batteries. Trail food. Again, it's a question of personal choice, but remember, a lot of trail food that you buy in the store is either really sugary or really salty. So think about some healthy options like apples, absolutely great. Some nuts, some plain nuts, some beef jerky. In this case, some granola bars or Cliff bars. Those are always great, and M&Ms, a great option. So have some variety. There's a lot of sugary foods in here, a lot of fatty foods in here, and some things that are rich in protein. So I've got a bit of a variety to choose from depending on the kind of energy I need. A water bottle. This is a stainless steel one, which means I can boil water in it if I have to. But you know what? Again, whatever works. Just a plastic water bottle works, just as well. If not better. And but I guess the only other thing is just to recycle. Don't buy a plastic water bottle. Just use it for the day and throw it away. Try and refill it. It's cheaper and it's better for the planet. Matches. Match safe with some matches here. Pretty self-explanatory. I also have a ferro rod, lighter, and some fire starters. It's great to practice with using a ferro rod with different kinds of different ways to start a fire. But if I'm just going on a day hike, just a lighter, doesn't weigh anything, and some matches, that will do the job. Sun cream. I'm in England. I can't imagine, there's not many times you're actually going to need this, but, nonetheless, it's a good thing to have. And then finally, a map and compass. A good map, and a good compass. I have one with a sighting mirror on the top, a ranger compass. Being able to use a map and compass is absolutely essential if you're going out into the woods. Before you go out, you should at least know the basics. Yeah, can't say that enough. Know how to use a map and compass. Okay, and then finally, all this gear I tend to put in a waterproof dry bag. Again, a plastic bag works just as well, but at least that way in my backpack, all these things aren't moving around. I know where they are, and most importantly, I can keep them dry. Just two quick things on packing. So that's the 10 Scout Essentials. So two quick things on packing, which I think are really important. Your rain gear should be at the top of your bag. Here's my bag here. Rain gear should always be at the top so you can get to it quickly. You don't want to be going right down to the bottom to get your rain jacket. And then finally, the first aid kit. The first aid kit should be, like it says, first aid. You should be able to get it really, really quickly. Not hold on for 10 minutes while I take everything out of my bag and try and find my first aid kit. That's not really first. So put it somewhere, again, either on the top or on the outside of your bag. I've got this pocket on the outside, which is actually for crampons, but I'll always put my first aid kit right in there. The other thing that I'll always do is, if I put it here, that's great, I know where it is, but if I'm the person that needs first aid, the person I'm hiking with might not know where my first aid kit is. So I will always tell the person that I'm hiking with where my first aid kit is and ask them where their first aid kit is. It's just a good thing to get into the habit of doing before you set out. Where's your first aid kit? My first aid kit is in the long pouch on the outside of your bag. It just sits right there. It's the only thing in that pouch. You can't lose it, and you can get at it very, very quickly. So those are the 10 Scout Essentials. Now, when it comes to the Cub Scouts, the essentials are exactly the same, with just one exception, or two exceptions. The Cub Scout Essentials don't have extra clothing, which is a bit strange, I guess, but what they replace it with is a whistle. Now, to be honest, if I'm lost or just on a hike, I think a whistle and extra clothing are both great things. So it's probably just a good idea to combine the two, the Cub Scout 10 Essentials and the Boy Scout 10 Essentials, and have 11. That way you've got your extra clothing and your first aid. Your whistle. Okay, so those are the Scout 10 Essentials, and it's really what you should be taking on a day hike. Now, if you do some research online, one person that you're probably going to come across is a guy called Dave Canterbury. Great guy, great YouTube channel. You should definitely check him out. And he doesn't go for the Scout 10 Essentials. It's what he recommends is something very, very similar. It's something he calls the 10 C's. Now, they have different emphases, the Scout Essentials and Dave's 10 C's. And I guess the best way to describe it is the Scout 10 Essentials is what's going to keep you the most comfortable for about a day. It's for a day hike, and it will give you everything that you would need to be able to find your way back if you got lost, or for others to find you, like the whistle and the matches, a little extra food to keep you going. Dave's emphasis is a little bit more on self-reliance. So it's about a scenario, let's say I was stuck in the woods for 48 hours or 72 hours. What would I need to stay comfortable in that kind of a scenario, which is a bit different. His list is very, very similar, but there's a couple differences which I think we can learn a lot from. So what he'll say first is a cutting tool. Now he has some very specific recommendations on what you should be using for a cutting tool or a knife. If you want to take a look at those, take a look at his channels. But a knife, combustion, so some way to make fire. Again, he'll recommend a ferro rod because if it gets wet, you can still use it. But some way to make fire. Cover. Now this is something that isn't in the Scout 10 Cs. So something just like a very simple ground sheet or a small tarp, something that can keep the rain off of you if you're stuck out and you need to spend the night. A container. So your water bottle is a great container, something to store water or other things. And again, he'll say it's something metal, so you can disinfect the water. Again, very similar to the Scouts. One thing he will say though is cordage, rope, either paracord or bank line or something similar to that. And, to be perfectly honest, I can't think of a single time I've ever been out in the woods and I've not carried rope. So, definitely one that Scouts should carry as well. So that's cordage. A candling device, so a flashlight. Cotton bandana. Cotton bandana has just so many uses. Dozens and dozens of uses for a cotton bandana. And it weighs just absolutely nothing. So it's definitely worth putting in your backpack. A compass, talked about that. Cargo tape, that's one thing I don't have here because, to be perfectly honest, I had some and I've used it all up. It's just very, very useful to repairing tents, repairing backpacks. One time we were caught in a really nasty windstorm and one of the poles of the tent snapped, and I was able to repair it quite nicely with the cargo tape or the duct tape. So something that's worth putting in your pack. You don't have to carry a big roll like this, that weighs a pound or two. If you can find either online or if you go to Cotswolds Outdoors, if you're in the UK, they sell a really nice little roll of duct tape, and that's more than what you need for a couple days or a week or more in the woods. And then finally, a kind of unusual thing that he'll recommend is a canvas needle. And I actually keep mine in my first aid kit because it keeps it nice and safe. Also because in my first aid kit is my first aid kit, hygiene kit, and repair kit all in one. Kind of conceptually, I think these things go together, but I'll talk about that more maybe some other time. But he'll recommend a canvas needle. Canvas needle is just a really big needle with a rather large hole in the back, and also it typically has a diamond-shaped or a triangle-shaped point, so that it can really punch through tough materials quite easily. So something to keep your gear maintained. So there you have it. What to take on a day hike: Scout 10 Essentials, Cub Scout 10 Essentials, and Dave Canterbury's 10 C's of survivability. All three really great lists, and it'll keep you prepared.